Recently, Russia launched another massive attack on Ukraine's civilian and critical infrastructure. Kyiv and Odesa received the brunt of the ballistic missile strikes. Russia launched a massive combined strike. Due to a lack of interceptors for the Patriot missile systems, none of the 6 ballistic missiles were shot down. All of them reached their targets or exploded within the city limits. Given the shortage of interceptor missiles, Ukraine needs to change its focus, not just ask its partners for new supplies, but systematically target Russian defense industry enterprises that produce missiles and drones. Ukraine has sufficient weapons, given that hundreds of drones attack Russian territory every night. If Ukraine can scale up strikes to several hundred UAVs, then these capabilities should be concentrated on specific targets within the Russian defense industry. For example, the Votkinsk Plant, which produces missiles. The plant is of strategic importance, as it is the primary manufacturer of Russian intercontinental and short-range ballistic missile systems. The Votkinsk Plant produces RS-24 Yars intercontinental ballistic missiles and their modifications, are 30 Bulava ballistic missiles for Borei-A submarines, as well as missiles for the Iskander-M missile system and the Kinzhal air defense system, according to the General Staff. If 400 drones were launched against a single enterprise in a single day, no enemy air defense system, which they practically don't have, would be able to prevent such a massive strike. And if 1,200 were launched in 3 days, the plant would cease to exist, says military and political analyst Dmitry Snezherev. According to him, Ukraine should employ a combined attack approach. First, decoy drones that overwhelm air defenses, then attack drones, followed by cruise missiles. This is precisely the approach that should be used against Russian defense industry enterprises. I'd like to point out the limited U.S. capacity to produce Patriot interceptor missiles. If Russia launches around 75 missiles in a single large-scale attack, roughly twice as many interceptors are required to intercept them. If there are 2 such attacks per month, the need could reach around 300 interceptor missiles per month. The annual production of Patriot interceptor missiles is only 600 worldwide for the U.S. military, strategic partners outside NATO, and the Ukrainian front. We don't understand this? We probably do. This is precisely why Ukraine cannot rely solely on awaiting new supplies from the United States to build its defense. Its partners may also question why Kyiv, while possessing its own weapons, isn't consolidating them at Russian missile and drone factories. As a reminder, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, speaking in the Bundestag, stated that he no longer sees a need to supply Ukraine with Taurus long-range cruise missiles, as Kyiv has achieved significant technological progress and is independently producing effective weapons. Specifically, he noted that Ukrainian developments in long-range systems are significantly more effective than the relatively small number of Taurus cruise missiles that Germany could transfer. Let me note that the cost of one interceptor missile is $4 million, for the Persian Gulf countries, $7 million. Potential targets for strikes include enterprises in Voronezh, Cheboksary, the Kyiv plant in Izhevsk, which produces drones, and the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, where UAV production is being scaled up, expert added. Why are we appealing to the United States and not to our European partners, who also produce anti-ballistic weapons, France and Italy? And why are we only raising this issue in the 5th year of the war? Didn't we realize we had no counter-ballistic weapons? I would like to draw special attention to the background of the current problem with air defense. After the collapse of the USSR, Ukraine had one of the most powerful layered air defense systems in the world, but subsequently lost a significant portion of these capabilities, he said. Expert recalled that at the time of the collapse of the USSR and the beginning of the formation of its own armed forces in 1991 to 1992, Ukraine inherited 225 anti-aircraft missile systems. This made the Ukrainian Air Defense Force one of the most powerful in the world at the time. The infrastructure included 9 anti-aircraft missile brigades. Later, after internal reorganizations, the removal of obsolete systems and redeployments, by 1997, the air defense shield consisted of 160 anti-aircraft missile battalions. But under Anatoly Hrytsenko, the former Minister of Defense of Ukraine, all of this was sold off for next to nothing. According to the official findings of the Temporary Investigative Commission of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, which investigated embezzlement and the reduction of the Ukrainian armed forces' defense potential, dozens of air defense systems and complexes were sold during Hrytsenko's tenure as the Ministry of Defense. Elements of dozens of ground forces air defense systems and air defense facilities were decommissioned and put up for sale. Along with other types of artillery, a significant portion of the nearly 28,555 air defense and missile systems sold during the 2005 to 2014 sales period occurred during the Hrytsenko ministry, when the residual value of the assets was assessed at reduced rates. In other words, we've disarmed ourselves. Our Western partners understand this perfectly well. And the main question is, why hasn't Hrytsenko been charged yet? That's the root of the problems. We sold off our air defense systems cheaply. And now we're complaining that we've sold everything off and asking for the ability to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles. The key question now is why Ukraine's strike strategy against Russia focuses primarily on oil refineries rather than missile and drone-producing defense industry facilities, especially given the lack of interceptor missiles to defend Ukraine, he added. Ukrainian Armed Forces serviceman and military analyst Oleksandr Musienko emphasized that successful long-range strikes by the Ukrainian Armed Forces have changed the strategic vision of the war among Western partners. The high effectiveness of attacks on Russian military airfields, air defense systems, and oil refineries has forced the Allies to reconsider their approach. While at the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukraine received aid primarily from warehouses in the US and European countries. Now the issue is about increasing production. This is a significant challenge. We need to attract investment in production in Europe to meet Ukraine's needs, and also, jointly with Ukraine, in its defense industry so that its weapons supply increases. This primarily concerns air defense systems and long-range weapons, drones and missiles, he noted. According to the speaker, discussion of the Anti-Ballistic Protection Program, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Defense System, ABM, within the Freya project, remains important. The outcome of the NATO summit demonstrates that the US is serious about investing in the European defense industry. The American defense industry is interested in increasing production, including for Ukraine. They see the market and understand the need for support, and US President Trump noted that the escalation we are seeing, including on the Ukrainian side, is right. This should lead to an end to hostilities, Musienko emphasized. According to the military analyst, for pressure on Russia to be effective, Ukraine's rear, the European countries where weapons and long-range weapons for Ukraine are produced, must operate reliably. Investments are necessary to increase production and deter aggression, as well as to pressure dictator Putin to end the war. Progress is being made across the board. A key aspect was the U.S. strategic pivot, which included the decision to license the production of PAC-3 missiles for Patriot systems, including in Ukraine. This means the U.S. believes in the resilience of Ukraine's defense and is willing to invest. There is no other way to increase Patriot production other than deploying them in Europe and Ukraine. There is also an understanding that the meet and negotiate approach is not working. The U.S. is changing its strategy and approach to support Ukraine and strengthen its strikes, he stated. NATO and Kyiv's partners see Ukraine's opportunities and Russia's vulnerabilities. The speaker asserts that the Allies understand that there are vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. Since the beginning of the year, more than 700 military facilities on Russian territory have been hit. This is a systematic buildup. Our partners see that Ukraine is capable of intensifying its attacks, while Russia is letting them pass. This could weaken Russia's military and economic potential and limit its ability to attack NATO's eastern flank. All of this strengthens our belief in the correctness of our strategy of pressuring Putin, Musienko concluded. Recall, recent Ukrainian drone and missile strikes have severely damaged major Russian oil refineries, including Moscow's Kapotnya facility, which will remain offline until at least year's end. The attacks have knocked out key processing units, cut gasoline output by roughly 25% year-on-year, and disrupted supply to occupied Crimea. These operations are part of Kyiv's broader strategy to target assets sustaining Russia's war effort, both in occupied territories and inside Russia itself. Facing a steep drop in domestic fuel output, Russia has banned petroleum and aviation fuel exports and is considering a diesel ban. Moscow is also seeking gasoline imports from Kazakhstan, despite limited capacity there and upcoming refinery maintenance that will constrain supply. Industry sources note that Kazakhstan could trade fuel for Russian jet fuel, but both nations face looming shortages in different fuel categories. Ukrainian intelligence reports that Russia has shifted air defense systems to protect Moscow and the Kerch Bridge, weakening coverage in other regions and occupied territories. This follows large-scale drone attacks on the Russian capital and strikes on critical infrastructure, including ammunition depots and defense industry plants. Analysts say these redeployments signal that Ukraine's long-range strikes are forcing Moscow into reactive measures that could open new opportunities for Kyiv on other fronts.